Alright, so before we can begin exercise testing, we gotta go over the PAR-Q, just some general health questions.
Okay.
So check these over and see if any of these you would mark yes to or no.
No.
Perfect. So that means you're set for exercise. So now we have the form consent form, which you can sign right here. Sign that, showing that you're informing to exercise. We're going to do a graded exercise test and submaximal load. So all these. So it says what we're going to do. Okay. So now we're going to get we're going to do your resting blood pressure and heart rate before we get going with the test. Also, when we're completing the test, at every minute we're going to ask you how you're feeling on a scale from 1 to 10. So 1 is like I'm fine, like I'm sitting, and 10 is like I'm completely exhausted. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll get started with the test.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Yep.
So now that we're done with the questions with the PAR-Q, we're going to take her resting blood pressure. You have 112/60.
Alright, so we're going to begin the cycloergometer test. We're starting with 5 minutes of warm-up at 0 kps. Alright, so now we're going to move into stage 1 at 2 kps.
At minute 2, her heart rate is going to be at 122.
So heart rate's at 124, so we've reached steady state. So now we're going to take blood pressure. So on the, as we're ending stage 1, on the RPE scale, how hard do you think this is from 1 to 10?
Like a 34.
Like a 3 or 4? Perfect. So now we're moving into stage 2 at 2.5 kp.
At phase 2, minute 1, her heart rate is at 134. Minute 2, her heart rate is at 143.
No, his must be way higher.
Stage 2,
So we're done.
minute 3, we're at blood pressure or a heart rate of 147, which we have reached steady state and also her 70% max. So we're getting a final blood pressure reading. Then we're going to move into a cool down. Our blood pressure was at 142 over 78. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel right now?
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
I feel like a 7. Minute
7?
Yeah.
Good. So now that we've reached our 70% max, we're going to move into a cool down phase. We've lowered the KP back to 0, and now she's going to be in a 5-minute cool down.
We have 2 minutes.
So now we've seen that heart rate has normalized down below 120, and now we're making sure our blood pressure has normalized as well. Yep. So her blood pressure is normalized to 125/80, and after 5 minutes of cool down, we will now end the test.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now we're going to begin the treadmill test. So we're beginning at 1 minute at the stage 1 at speed of 1.7 miles per hour and a 10% grade. At the end of this minute, we will record her first heart rate and blood pressure. So heart rate is at 95.
95 beats per minute after the first minute.
Perfect.
96.
Well, that's steady state.
Yeah, steady
Okay.
state. So we can actually move on to phase 2.
All right, so now you go blood pressure.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Okay, so now at the second minute, her heart rate is at 96, which has reached steady state. So now we'll collect blood pressure. Now we're going to increase to stage 2. So we're going to increase the workload to a speed of 2.5 and a 12% grade.
Yeah. Her heart rate at phase 2, minute 1 is 109 beats per minute. At phase 2, minute 2, her heart rate is at 115 beats per minute. Almost there.
Almost. Next minute.
So at phase 2, minute 3, her heart rate is at 105 beats per minute. So we're going to include another minute in phase 2. So at phase 2, minute 4, her heart rate is at 107. She's reached steady state. We're going to move on to the next phase. But first, we're going to take her blood pressure.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel right now?
About a 3-4.
3 to 4, perfect. So now we're going to move on to stage 3. So we're going to increase the speed to 3.4 miles per hour and the grade to 14%.
Okay, so at phase 3, minute 1, her heart rate is at 115.
Yeah.
Okay, so at phase 3, minute 2, her heart rate is at 128. That was a
Big jump.
big jump. Ready? Okay, so at phase 3, minute 3, her heart rate is at 158. Wait, we have to stop the test.
Well, no way.
Oh, yeah. So we had to include another minute into phase 3 because she didn't reach steady state, but she did go above her 70% of her heart rate max. And at the 4th minute, she was at 160 beats per minute. And then we'll conclude the test here.
Last blood pressure, we got 145/80. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel right now?
About a 6-7.
6 or 7? Perfect. And now we're going to move into a cool down phase. So we've lowered the speed to 1.7 and the grade to 0. So now that we've, during the cool down phase, her heart rate lowered to 119, which is below the 120 threshold. We recorded blood pressure of 130/75. So this will conclude our cool down and conclude the treadmill test. Alright, so after reviewing your scores for the treadmill and the cycle ergometer test, we found that your VO2 max for the treadmill was 65.9, which is for women your age is ranked as superior. So for cardiorespiratory fitness, which makes sense because you've done so much work with basketball and with training on a treadmill and stuff.
Yeah.
However, for your cycle ergometer test, your VO2 max actually came out pretty low at 21, which is actually registered as poor. But we think there's a lot of factors at play there, partially because we did this test first. So we think it was kind of like a warm-up in a sense for you. Plus, you don't train much on a bike,
Right.
which can kind of explain the lower score there. But overall, since your treadmill test was pretty good, I think that's a more accurate measure of your VO2 max because that's where you train mostly.
Okay.
So,
Thank you so much.
yep.